Hey, you, welcome back to Mick. It's me again, the only person on this channel named Jack. And here's your daily good dose of the internet today. Here's our bundle of stories for you. As always, if you do enjoy your time here, please give a like on the video, and if you're not subscribed already, well, come on. It doesn't cost you anything, you know it doesn't. Anyway, enough of my terrible persuasion skills, let's get into the stories. Am I the a-hole for losing it when my husband called CPS on my sister? I'm a 33-year-old female, and my 28-year-old sister is a single mom with 2 kids aged 7 and 4. Ever since her ex left, I did everything I could to help out with the kids, like watching them a few times a week while she works, and coming over to her house to help her to get things done, like fixing stuff and cleaning. My husband voluntarily took part as well, and he'd go over to help with a few things. He said he wanted and was happy to help. No one made him or go even ask him to do any of the things he did. Lately, he started complaining whenever my sister brings the kids, so I could watch them for a few hours. He'd say that it started affecting our lives by not going out and meeting with family and friends and having to watch the kids instead. The thing is, he was free to go hang out with his friends. I was fine and willing to help with the kids since I work from home and seeing how hard she works. He brought it up again and said that my sister clearly can't handle being a single mother and needed to stop counting on us for help. I thought he was being mean by making those comments. I told him he doesn't have to help if he felt uncomfortable, and he stopped talking about it. Well, last week he threw a fit when my sister brought the kids so I could watch them for a few hours, and he said that I was being a doormat for my sister and, well, that we weren't obligated to do the hard work of raising her kids for her. He left the house, then came home in the evening. The next day, I got a call from my sister, and she was crying, saying someone called CPS on her and had an agent come over to her house for a surprise visit. First, she said it might have been her in-laws, but later, my husband told me that he anonymously called CPS on her because he thought that this would be a wake-up call for her to stop counting on us for help and step up as a mother. I was absolutely livid. I lost it and yelled at him. He argued that my sister shouldn't be freaking out long as she had nothing to worry about. But this was huge. The amount of stress she and the kids must have felt, I can't imagine. I have a bad history with CPS when I was young. He did something awful just because he thought she wasn't good enough and needed some type of warning to get her life together. I yelled at him because no matter how he thought, it wasn't a big deal. Calling CPS is huge and just wrong. I was so angry with him, I couldn't even talk to my sister after what he did. I did talk to her, and she was feeling upset and frustrated and shaken up. She doesn't know my husband was the one who made the call, and I feel horrible thinking about it. I'm so mad at him despite him apologizing for what he did. So, basically, he's sick of having to be responsible for your sister's children and hates that you are willingly taking the burden for her. And since you can't see what he sees, he's resorted to calling an outside crew to, shake things up a little. Does it make you the a-hole for snapping back at him as a result? Well, one person thinks, not the a-hole. CPA is not there to waste resources that could have been used on families that actually need the help because he is immature. Your husband needs to get his head out from his behind. Meanwhile, everyone sucks here. Your husband never should have called CPS, but your spouse is repeatedly requesting to spend more time together and stating that he doesn't want children running around your shared house. The latter is fair, and especially so, given it doesn't even sound like you asked him if he was all right with the kids being in the house for several hours. Despite him repeatedly stating these concerns, you dismissed and ignored him. Now, despite the way I worded the summary of this story, and despite the fact I do agree with the latter half of the everyone sucks here, I'm gonna stand by not the a-hole. While I absolutely think the husband is valid to be concerned and frustrated and annoyed with how you basically dismissed his fair disagreement with the fact that you were basically being a child carer for the sister. He may not be engaging with the kids as actively as you are, but he clearly wants time with you. Time that he's now losing because your sister, maybe unintentionally, is taking advantage of your hospitality. You clearly have a very soft spot for your sister and her circumstance, but it should always come to a point where they need to just lift themselves up by the bootstraps. And maybe your husband is noticing some qualities about your sister that is making her rather lazy in this responsibility. Still really stupid to resort to CPS as a way of confronting this issue, but what have you done as a communicative partner if that is what he's had to resort to get you to listen? Of course, assuming he's actually tried to communicate in the first place. Anyway, let's get on to the next story. Am I the a-hole for icing out my cousin after she implied my wife was a predator? I am a 27-year-old woman, and my wife is 33. We met when I was 25, and she was 31. So there is a 6-year age difference, sort of. I will be 28 in December, and she won't be 34 for 9 months after that. Now, neither of us feel this age gap is very significant. Despite really liking me, she was actually a little more wary than I was starting the relationship. Not want to seem like she was a creep. Not that it matters, but I was the one who initiated things and pursued her at the start. Okay, I'm just gonna say first up, that is a terrible reason to excuse an issue with age difference. Like, personally, I see this age difference fine in this context, but like, if you were 16 and they were 24, yeah, no, it doesn't matter if you were the one that pursued the 24-year-old. That is still so wrong. Anyway, my 27-year-old cousin recently moved into the same city as us and has taken to showing up at our apartment whenever she feels like it, despite us nipping it in the bud and telling her multiple times we may be busy and that there is a pandemic. We put our foot down about 2 weeks ago and she's taken to FaceTiming. One thing she's touched on before is our age difference. She seems to have it in her mind that because of the gap and that I am very feminine, whereas my wife is a classic butch, that my wife is controlling or that she's in charge. Our cat is in charge, and I'm kind of like a ditzy whatever. I've gotten so sick of it. Yesterday, she called and she actually said, "Do you ever worry that your wife was actually kind of predatory?" Which, like, what? I hung up the phone and texted her saying, "I don't want to talk to you anymore until you get these weird ideas and stereotypes out of your head, and I certainly don't want you here for Thanksgiving." Now, she wasn't even invited to our Thanksgiving in the first place, but seemed to be hopeful that we would change our mind. Now I've been getting slammed with texts from my aunt and uncle. Cousin cannot return home for Thanksgiving and knows very few people here. I've essentially isolated her. The guilt is starting to creep in now. Am I the a-hole for essentially banning her from a relationship during a lonely time? People's thoughts? Not the a-hole. You're 27, not 17. She is not a predator. You're both in similar stages of life. Your cousin was out of line. How much you want to bet your cousin would date a 21-year-old? Yeah, agreed. If she didn't want to be isolated, then she shouldn't have made a self-isolating comments insulting your intelligence and your relationship. I would explain what she did to your family members, because it's likely she gave them a completely different story. No one actually thought that the OP was the a-hole in this circumstance, so I'm gonna be one. Yeah, your cousin made really ignorant and kind of insulting, well, very insulting comments, but even by the way you worded it, it seems like they were just genuinely making an inquiry. Sure, maybe the way they executed that question was rather sinister in behavior, but it genuinely sounds like they were just, being their ignorant self. Which, if you were a mature person, you'd know that this is more of an opportunity for you to educate her rather than just, kick her out of your life. It's easier to attack than to educate after all. Honestly, it seems like if anything, her being more exposed to you and your wife's relationship would have helped her grow as a person too and understand the reality of your relationship. Besides, this reaction you gave her is more likely to make her think that she was actually right and she just hit a nerve that you weren't comfortable confronting. TLDR, she did say a very ignorant thing, but clearly not with enough vitriol and hate to warrant you to kick her out entirely. I do think you're kind of the a-hole here. Anyway, next story. Am I the a-hole? I left my fiance at hospital with a newborn. My fiance reckons that this post is very similar to me, and thinks that I'm the a-hole for doing something similar. I disagree, but I have an open mind about this, so I'm wanting to find out the consensus based on our situation. My fiance's labor was hard and long. It lasted around 46 hours, and if relevant, we are based in the UK. We arrived in the hospital at around 6 on Monday, but I was forced to leave at 11 that day due to restrictions. I got back home around midnight. The following day, I was back in at 7 a.m. and stayed until 11, where I was once again forced to leave. But I was back in at 2 a.m. as things had progressed enough. Things were hard for her, but our son was born at around 4 p.m. on that second day. I stayed again until 11. I guess this is where the ambiguity lies. I'd say there were 1 or 2 partners out of ward of 6 who appeared to be staying longer, but I thought it was best to leave at just around midnight. My reasoning at the time being was that I was concerned I wouldn't be fit enough to drive my son home on the following day. I knew if I stayed overnight that I couldn't sleep on the single couch available on the ward, and with my tiredness, obviously not on the same scale as my fiance's, I mean that I knew I wouldn't be able to drive the next day. As a bit of backstory, we discussed before the pregnancy about my nervousness of driving a newborn baby, and how I thought it was best someone else in my family drove us home. She disagreed and wanted us to drive together back as a family. Now, I mentioned this as my main reason the following day, that either I don't drive back or I go home and get sleep. The somewhat agreed consensus was that I get rest and come back about 8 hours later, which I did. I really didn't feel comfortable driving our baby back in a completely sleep-deprived position, and felt that she had enough support on the ward to get through the night. I did miss seeing my newborn on the same day, and would have stayed had both of us been happy with an alternative, such as a taxi, etc. After the fact, she felt that I made the right call, but after seeing the above Reddit post, now feels like I was an a-hole for leaving her. So am I the a-hole? People's thoughts? You're the a-hole, massively! Why does this even have to be explained? You'll be too tired from sleeping peacefully on a couch while your fiancé wakes up with a newborn, feeds them, changes them, and rocks them back to sleep after laboring for several days. You're such an a-hole I can't explain, and I'd be regretting having a baby with you if I were your fiancé. Yeah, that comment does not sound personal at all. I'm gonna say not the a-hole for the sheer fact that she was okay with the reasoning until she read a similar post that was about other people. I'm also gonna say not the a-hole because it's a valid reason, and driving sleep-deprived should be avoided if possible, which it was. You both thought it was the right call when it was made. Not the a-hole. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, look, she is valid to change her opinion on things as time goes by, but I agree, he was very valid with everything he did. And he communicated with her and actually talked to her about this, so it's not like she wasn't expecting him to do any of these things. Nor did she tell him not to do these things in the first place, and if anything was the person who pushed this decision onto him. So yeah, look, not the a-hole. Of course she dealt with the bigger issue of having to go through labor for so long, and you know, having a child, that's, yeah, I've done the research, I know how horrifying it is and painful it is to have a child. But to compare both of the experience they've been through as a justification for why he has to drive, no, it's not a decision between whether or not he or she has to drive, it's a decision about whether or not he is safe enough to drive. People calling Yatar on this will be the same people who would call him an a-hole because he crashed the car from not having enough sleep. How's the hindsight on that high horse of yours? Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my roommate that her inappropriate art isn't welcome? It's like 2 AM here and my living situation has exploded into drama. I'll try to keep it short. I'm a 25-year-old female and I share a house with 3 people, Ricky, Kira, and Paige, all 20s. Ricky and I are recent grads, and Kira and Paige are in grad school. They are also a lesbian couple. Anyway, when we moved in, we just furnished the house in some bare-bones IKEA stuff. Paige mentioned wanting to put up some art, and I agreed, thinking it would just be a landscape painting or something. But no, Paige apparently makes very not safe for work art, and she put it up in our living room. Highlights include a picture of a person licking a nipple and a fat stripper. Very weird stuff, to be honest. I told Paige that dirty art could only be displayed in her room, and that stuff in the common areas had to be appropriate for all ages. I used to have my elementary school age nieces over a lot, and I'll start doing it again once the pandemic is over. I don't want them to see super crude stuff. Well, Paige was going to agree, but Kira freaked out and made it into a homophobic thing. I'm bisexual myself, and I tried to tell her that. Now nobody in the house is talking, and Ricky is mad at me too for causing drama. Am I the a-hole? Edit to clarify, I'm totally fine with gay-themed art, or any other art, as long as it's appropriate for kids. Kira maintains that the art isn't sexual, but a stripper and a literal tongue licking a boob is pretty sexual to most people. She also says that our apartment is an adult space and I just shouldn't bring my nieces unless they can deal with it. So at what point does someone's art become akin to pornography? I mean, after all, unless it's a childcare they live at, it is a mostly adult space, and it could be fair to say that they're all paying pretty much the same level of rent to clarify who gets to use the space for what purpose. Some thoughts? You're not the a-hole. You being uncomfortable with graphic art has nothing to do with your sexuality. 1, that's a boundary. they should respect it or at least try to compromise. 2. Not wanting to expose kids to that is totally understandable. 3. It's a shared space. I'm a bi girl as well, and I love me some titty art, but there's a reason my apartment's kitchen isn't decorated with areolas. Common courtesy isn't hard. Yeah, if there's one criticize I can make towards people who accuse others of homophobia, is that there is a clear difference between someone who hates you because of your sexuality and hates you because you are shoving your sexuality right in their face. No, you are the a-hole. Nudity isn't a problem. Nearly all famous art is nudes. Stop being a prude. A child sees a nipple as a food source. It's adults who sexualize the female form. Yeah, like the adult in this context who created the art that's clearly sexualizing the feminine body and licking, sensually tasting the nipple. My house is full of nude art my girlfriend put up. It's not porn, it's art. You also don't notice the art in your house after a month or two. I have a giant metal brass stag's head with a crown of sunflowers on a bare brick wall surrounded by a huge oak frame above a fireplace. Made it myself. I honestly forgot about it until a new guest pointed it out. I then saw it daily. I just stopped registering it as quite an eye-catching piece. I personally love this logic. You won't even notice it's there until a guest points it out. Yes, that is the point. We don't want a guest to point it out and be uncomfortable by it, especially if they are kids. Whoa, dude, is that a photo of me slapping my girlfriend's boobies like bongo drums? Yes, it is. Why? Are you uncomfortable by it? You're a prude! Okay, they do come to a legitimate point at the end, though. Someone with some more common sense? It's not a tasteful nude. It's some edgy sexual art. Nudity doesn't have to be sexual, sure, but when the art is someone licking a nipple or a stripper, literally a sex worker, then the artist is the one sexualizing, not the viewer. And that's fine. Maybe it's great art, but someone may not want it next to a child, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure your parents got naked in front of you when you were a kid, but I highly doubt Daddy was licking Mummy's nipple or she was exotic dancing, because that's inappropriate. So I've made my thoughts clear in this circumstance. What are yours, though? If you agree with me, then like this video. If you don't, then let me know by liking this video. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to rebuild my relationship with my sister? My sister and I didn't get along well growing up. When we were younger, we often used to fight over small things. Every time we argued, she would cry, and my parents would always take her side. We literally hated each other and didn't get along at all. But as we grew older, things got a little better. We stopped fighting, but we were never close and didn't have a brother-sister relationship at all. After seeing how well all my friends got along with their siblings, it made me realize how broken my relationship with my sister was. At that time, I was 14, and my sister was a few years younger. I tried to talk to her and often asked to hang out with her, but she was never interested in spending time with me. We had different hobbies and interests. I liked sports and she liked video games, and had little in common. Anyway, we never hung out, and every time I asked her if she wanted to spend time with me, she'd say no and find an excuse. Apart from that, she would always snitch on me and blame me for things she did. Because of her, I got in a lot of trouble. When I moved out at 19, I decided that there was no reason to try to reach out to her anymore. She would never want to do anything anyway, so why would I even waste my time trying? I still see her at family gatherings every year, but we don't talk much and have nothing more than a cordial relationship. I know this saddens our parents, but there's really nothing I can do. I'm 21 now, and she's 18. Recently, she has tried to reach out to me, by either texting or calling me. She would ask me how my day was and start random conversations, but I honestly have no interest in responding her with anything but short answers. After a few weeks, she finally asked me why I didn't want to talk to her and why I was being cold-hearted. I don't remember the entire conversation, but it included, we were never close growing up, so why would we have a relationship now? Because you're my brother and I love you? I'm sorry, but I don't trust you and I have no interest in having a relationship. Stop being cruel. I'm not being cruel. That ship has sailed and there's no going back. If you really wanted a relationship, you should have cherished it before it was too late. Now, she started crying and begging me to give her another chance, but I didn't change my mind. I don't trust her, and I don't know why she would suddenly just reach out to me now. A few minutes later, my mum called me and said I was being an a-hole and that I should just make up with my sister. But I don't think I'm in the wrong. It's not my fault she was distant to me for so many years. Am I the a-hole? Opinions. Not the a-hole. Besides what she has done, her recent behavior shows she hasn't changed her emotionally manipulating ways at all. Some disagreements in the comments though. Her recent behavior is reaching out and being nice. It's up to OP to accept it or not, but rejecting her is his choice. If he wants to justify it based on the actions of someone when they were 11 to 18, then he can. But I probably wouldn't. You're the a-hole, but it's his right to be. Yeah, you are the a-hole. Plenty of kids don't have close relationships in childhood, but when they mature, they are able to develop one as adults. When they mature. You sound like you're still 14. No, not the a-hole. She was not only distant, but cruel to you for years, blaming you and getting you into trouble for stuff you didn't do. Even if you may have forgiven her or no longer hold a grudge, the trust is gone, along with the affection. That's the important part of any relationship, and without trust, you can't continue a below-surface level relationship. So is he valid to just say bye-bye? Or should he actually give her a second chance? Because, well, they're adults now and they've grown. Look, personally, as someone who did have a bit of a shaky experience with their sibling growing up, and to now, as mature adults, have a very loving and fun relationship with them, I definitely think you are wasting an opportunity to develop some really fond and fun memories with your sister. Yeah, you had a bad time growing up together when you were young and immature, and I guarantee that if she's reaching out to you right now, it is because she definitely regrets or somewhat acknowledges her bad behavior in the past. Hell, I guarantee that his rejection is purely coming from a sense of wanting to get revenge for how she treated him. It's hardly got to do with apathy in this scenario as much as him just wanting to become the guy on top. Look, they hurt you when you were a kid. That's fine. That's valid to feel hurt. But I don't see any evidence in your story that you have given them a chance to apologize to you, or at least try and offer their chance to fix what they've done. Rather than replacing a few planks and maybe a bit of rope, you just set the bridge alight yourself. You're absolutely petty and an a-hole for doing so, but again, it's your freedom to do so. And with that said, I'm gonna conclude things there. Where's your brain at in all this, though? You think I'm in the wrong? You reckon I'm maybe a few screws loose with my logic? Feel free to let me know, I do like to read the comments. And on that note, how did you enjoy today's video? I do like to read feedback in any kind of case. I've tried to make sure the opening titles are a lot more shorter so we get straight into the good stuff, but I still feel like there's some other knickknacks in the video structure that I could fix up on, so please, again, let me know how you feel. Of course, if you are also this far in the video, you clearly enjoyed your time today. So, the generic shenanigans, like the video, come on, like the video. And if you subscribed, thank you so much, you're a lovely person. No, seriously, I love you. I'm gonna get the engagement ring for us tomorrow, I swear. I will be at your house, I will be on one knee. Broken promises aside, my name has been Jack. You have been a lovely person today, and I look forward to rambling at you next time. Bye-bye!